Today we're going to be talking about portable air conditioners. The one I have behind me here is made by Cooper & Hunter, and this is a dual hose unit. That's probably the most important consideration that you need to take into account. If you're going to be purchasing a portable air conditioner, make sure you buy one that has two hoses. So I'll be sure to link to this one in the description of this video. Now I know the timing is also kind of interesting. It's later in the year at this point when I'm filming this. So even though air conditioning season is almost finished, it won't be very long before it's air conditioning season again, and hopefully you'll be ready to make an informed decision. The other cool thing about this particular unit is that this actually is a heat pump in addition to being an air conditioner. So if you want to basically provide a little bit of supplemental heating to a room, or if you live in an area where it's not going to get super cold, this might be a good option for some temporary heat that's more efficient than using a resistance electric heater that you just plug into the wall. So I'll start by just kind of explaining how this thing is set up, the way you set up the hoses and some of those aspects. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how a portable air conditioner is really a split unit that's just stuck together. And then finally we're going to tear it down, and I'm going to be able to show you guys the evaporator and the condenser, the regulating device, the compressor, as well as how this thing evaporates the condensation in air conditioning mode, which is really interesting. Most air conditioners, as I'm sure you're aware, have a lot of condensation that they need to get rid of. So this one actually drains the condensation down and has a clever way that they're able to evaporate that condensation and get rid of it without it having to have a drain hose connected to the unit all the time, which obviously would make your portable air conditioner even less portable. I do want to say right at the beginning here though, if you guys have a choice of buying a window unit, a PTAC, which is like a through-the-wall air conditioner and heating unit combination, which is similar to what you see in a lot of hotel rooms, or putting in a mini split system, all three of those are going to be more efficient than running one of these, just because the condensing unit is located inside with this particular setup, whereas all three of those other options have the condensing units outside, or at least closer to being outside than with a portable. So in the description of this video, I'll also link to a couple different mini splits and regular window air conditioners, as well as PTAC units, if you guys are interested in understanding and checking those out as well. So let's check this thing out. Here you can see a few different features that this unit advertises. It is an R410A unit, which is nice, standard refrigerant. This thing plugs into a standard 115 volt receptacle, as you can see right there. The cooling capacity is 14,000 BTUs per hour by AHRI, or 7,000 by the other rating agency. The unit altogether weighs 76.3 pounds net. It does also come with a remote control. This unit happens to be made by Cooper & Hunter, and the model number is CH-PDH14AC3. This thing just so happened to show up while it was raining outside, so hopefully everything is fine. But we just basically lift this off of here. Oops. You know, there's some stuff inside there. So right here's one of the hoses. Actually, this is both of the hoses, it looks like. One inside of the other, as well as some adapters and fittings. It appears this thing was in a nice bag, so any water that made it into the box would have kind of ran down the sides. There it is. It's on its wheels already. The accessories that come with your portable air conditioner are going to be pretty basic. If you had gotten a single hose unit, all you would have had is one hose and one window fitment adapter that you can run that hose to. So if you got a good unit, it's going to come with two hoses instead of just one. So you can see we can just snap these into position, and now these would run up and be connected to the window wherever you happen to install your fitment casing adapter piece. So this has some adjustability so that you can put it in different widths of windows. I'm not really sure what you would do if you had like a lot narrower one, because you need to have both of those openings available. So you either have to trim this piece right here, or just take this piece off altogether so that you can use just the adapter portion here. But what we would do then is we'd use these adapters that snap into place like this, and then they would also thread onto or connect onto these hoses to be able to make that final connection to the window. The nice thing about this too is they've got this set up so that if you wanted to leave this in place and move the portable air conditioner for some reason, you can just snap covers over these holes and then leave this where it's at for next time you need to use it. That's enough about the accessories that come with it. Now let's talk about how this thing works. You can see we've got a GFCI device that is connected on the end of this thing. So that's pretty nice, additional level of safety. So when you plug this thing in, it's going to be protected via GFCI, so long as you connect it to a properly grounded receptacle. This particular unit has 4 different operating modes. It has heating mode, cooling mode, dehumidification, and then just fan or circulating the air just blowing around in the room. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on and go through the different modes. So it's looks like we started up in cooling mode right here. There's a little logo on top that indicates that. And we're going to turn our temperature down until we get the compressor to kick in, which it just kicked in just now. So now it's operating in cooling mode. This is going to be your most common scenario. Let's spin this thing around and take a look at the back. Right here is where the magic happens with the 2-hose system. We have air being pulled into this opening right here and then exhausted out of this opening over here. And the reason this is fantastic is that we can hook up this hose and this hose to the outside. So if you had a system that was just a single hose, just this one hose going out right here where the hot air is being pumped out, what that's doing is it's depressurizing your entire house. So it's creating a vacuum, a very slight vacuum inside the building. And what that causes is hot, humid air to an unconditioned air to infiltrate through the gaps and cracks of your house, and then ultimately basically fighting against the air conditioner that is trying to cool the air down. So by pulling air from outside into here and then cooling down that condensing coil and exhausting that heated air back out again, that allows the system to operate way more efficiently. All right, we're gonna pull off this back panel now because I'd really love to show you guys what's inside of here. I'm actually really curious to see how they're dealing with the water, if there's a way that they're evaporating the water, because anytime you run an air conditioner, it pulls a lot of moisture out of the air, and the unit has to get rid of that in one of 2 ways. It either has to drain it away, or it has to evaporate that water again using the heat from the condenser, which I think is what they're doing. So let's open it up and check it out. So there we go. She's disassembled. I didn't get permission to take it apart, but I guess we'll have to ask forgiveness, huh? I'm gonna quickly run through all of the different components that are in this thing so you guys kind of have a basic understanding of what's going on. Right here we have our capillary tubes. These are carrying liquid refrigerant up to the evaporator. So that liquid refrigerant is going through these tiny little tubes, which is going to control how much refrigerant goes into the evaporator coil. So that liquid refrigerant squirts down into these tubes here and it starts to boil off. Now, anytime a gas or a liquid changes to a gas, it requires energy in order to make that happen, and that energy is heat. And so what it's going to do is, as the air is being pulled across this evaporator coil, it's going to absorb heat and boil off that liquid refrigerant. So it's going to go back and forth, boiling off that liquid refrigerant until there's no more liquid left, and it's all just gas that has absorbed a whole bunch of heat from your room. And obviously it does that by pulling that air across the coil, through the fan, and then out through the top of the unit where that nice cool air comes from. So that gas makes its way from the evaporator coil then into the compressor, where it takes that gas and compresses it into a superheated gas. So it doesn't compress it into a liquid immediately, it compresses it into a superheated gas, because compressors aren't designed to pump liquid. If they pump liquid, then it actually can damage the compressor, which is why it's so important when you're adding refrigerant to like a larger system that you add the refrigerant slowly if it has to be added as a liquid. You never want to end up in a situation where you flood the compressor. I think I might have done it one time. I don't really want to talk about it right now, but it does happen. After the gas gets compressed in the compressor, that superheated gas is pushed into the condensing coil right here, and it goes back and forth, and as that superheated gas begins to cool, it's going to condense back into a liquid again. And after it's all turned back into a liquid, that liquid refrigerant makes its way back into the capillary tube again and up into the evaporator, thus completing the refrigerant cycle. Now, as you know, air conditioners produce a lot of condensation. That hot, humid air that gets pulled across this evaporator coil right here that's below the dew point of the air is going to collect that water, and that water has to drain away and be gotten rid of somehow. Now, these portable air conditioners have a really clever way of getting rid of that excess moisture without having to have hoses and tubes attached. This is something that I have not actually personally investigated before, so this was really cool to kind of look at this and understand what was happening. While this thing is operating in air conditioning mode, moisture collects onto the evaporator coil. It then runs down and collects into the drain pan, which is directly underneath the bottom of that coil. First, it will fill up this little trough here until it gets up past the level of that little divot right there. Once it gets past that level, it's going to drain into this compartment, and if we look right down here, you can see the top edge of the condenser coil located right there. So the water is going to drain right down that tiny little hole right there, and that liquid from the evaporator is then going to run down this hot condenser, run all the way down here, and a lot of that moisture is going to get evaporated right away just while it's going down the coil. Anything that makes it to the bottom, though, is going to collect in this drain pan. You can see we've got another drain pan going across the bottom right there. So any excess moisture that doesn't evaporate on the way down is going to collect in that base area. Now right over here we have a float, and this is the float that makes sure that this unit doesn't accidentally start flooding the room. So if the water level comes up high enough, it's going to push up that little float, and that will cause the drain pan full light to come on. Let's see if we can find that. I believe it's this LED indicator right there, indicating that it has too much water in it and you need to drain it out. So right over here, this is the part that is the most clever and the part that I was kind of looking for, trying to figure out exactly how they were doing this. And if you look right down here, there's a little motor right there. And if I stick my finger in there, I can kind of give it a spin like that. And it's connected to this little wheel back in that pan. You can kind of see it there just a little bit. As it spins, it basically picks up any moisture that's in the bottom of this drain pan and flings it back up onto the inside in-between layers of this condenser coil. And that gives it the opportunity to then evaporate and be ejected through the exhaust port on the back of the air conditioner, out through the hose, and to the outdoor ambient environment. So that's how they get away with not having a drain hose connected to your portable air conditioner all the time, which is pretty clever if you ask me. Now I'm going to do something that you probably shouldn't do, and Cooper and Hunter, if you're watching this, sorry. But I'm going to turn this thing on, and we're going to kind of watch how it operates, and I'll come back and kind of show you guys any observations that I think are worth talking about. So let's go ahead and put this thing in air conditioning mode. You know what would be the coolest thing ever would be if they came out with one of these that has a clear housing, so you could see all of this stuff operating behind the scenes. It'd be so cool. In air conditioning mode, this little motor down here is spinning just like we suspected it would be. Any accumulation of water will be taken by that little disc and thrown back up in between this condenser coil and then ultimately evaporated. As you can see right here on the evaporator, we have little droplets of condensation that are slowly making their way down to the drain pan. All right, let's go ahead and switch this thing over into heat pump mode. So it appears that it's waiting for something. After, I don't know, maybe a 3-minute delay, it did just kick in finally, so it should be in heat pump mode. Now that the unit is running in heat pump mode, it's going to be using this as the condenser here on top and the evaporator down below. So if we put our hand on here, we can actually feel that this condenser up here, what used to be the evaporator, is nice and warm. You can see that there is condensation on the ends of the tubes right there going down this evaporator coil, since this is now acting as the evaporator. The maximum temperature for what this can be set up to in heat pump mode is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's see, the range is all the way down to, oh there, it shut off. 62 degrees. 61 degrees, it looks like, is the lowest heat setting that you can have. So anywhere from 61 to 77. I didn't kick this thing into dehumidification mode, but basically it's going to run the same as in air conditioning. The only differences are that you're going to leave your hoses disconnected because you want to be able to exhaust that warm air back into the ambient environment. Because in dehumidification mode, you're not trying to cool the air in the room, you're just trying to remove the humidity. So you want to allow the room air to basically circulate through the unit and back into the ambient. And the other thing you're going to have to do is connect a hose to right here. That's going to allow all of that condensation that comes out of the air to go into this drain pan and drain out of a little garden hose into a drain. I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was extremely interesting to see just kind of how they've got everything laid out inside of this. Definitely amazing how they're able to fit a heat pump and air conditioner into the same unit like this. And then just the ways they got rid of the condensation, and I don't know, just pretty amazing and an impressive piece of technology, and extremely useful for scenarios where you can't use a window unit, PTAC, or mini split. This is definitely going to be a good option for those temporary situations where you just need to get some cooling or a little bit of heat, and it's not a long-term game plan. If you found this video to be interesting, I need you to do me a quick favor and hit that thumbs up button down below. If you do that, it'll help more people find this video and hopefully inform more people about their options regarding portable air conditioners. Also, if you have any comments or thoughts or experiences that you've had with portable air conditioners, also put those down in the comment section below, and I'd love to hang out with you guys a little bit. In the meantime though, I'm going to put a couple of videos here on the screen for you guys to choose from that are related to this topic, and we'll see you over there in just a few seconds. Thanks so much for watching. Now I have to put all 300 screws back in and put this thing back together. That should be fun.